Welcome back, folks, to Inside Arm Wrestling, Part 2, East versus West. Home of all the news, arm wrestling, fitness, strength, and fitness competition. Folks, we were at Part 1 earlier in the week talking about Devin versus Dennis. Talking about where John Brzezinski needs to bring his game to, or what John's next steps are in the world of arm wrestling. Talking about the big man from Nevada, Brandon Allen. But today, folks, we want to wrap up on some of our discussion from the East versus West on November 11th. And we're going to go, folks, to the ladies' match. Maybe the most highest profile match of the women's two matches out there for that event. Sarah Backman versus Egil Vaikudi. I hope I've said her name correctly. Certainly no disrespect if I butchered it at all. But they ended up going at it for the right arm 80 kilogram world title super match. Sarah Backman via Florida. Sarah Backman certainly from multiple world championship tournaments. Most recent prolific match against Gabriela Vasconcelos, in which Gabby was very dominant. But Sarah getting back into her lane in that 80 kilogram. I think 80 kilogram, folks, is somewhere around 175 to 180 pounds. That is not a small person by any means. The 176-pound class in men's arm wrestling is one of the most competitive. And Sarah, as a, let's call it a lightweight men's, but an 80 kilogram women's title super match. These two women are going to be super strong, super fast. But, folks, unfortunately for Sarah, Egil, who has a lot of strength and a lot of power, just dominated that performance. It was a 5-0 performance in favor of Egil. And I'll be honest with you, folks, I don't know that Sarah was in that match at all. I think that there's a big disconnect between North American pullers and European pullers. We see that quite a bit in these matchups, and I don't believe it's because of any kind of physiological benefits. I don't think there's any genetic benefits that are valued on a level that is creating an uneven platform for the North Americans, South Americans to compete against the Europeans. But what I think happens, folks, is that most Europeans that are at this level of arm wrestling find themselves as full-time arm wrestlers. Most North Americans don't have the funding to be able to be a full-time arm wrestler, to be able to train 2-3 hours a day, to be able to get the right nutritional, the right gear. You know, a lot of women take gear when it comes to arm wrestling. To be able to take the right combination of ingredients, if you will, to make the right cake or pancake, as many of the athletes call their gear and supplements, to be able to make the right pancake mix in order to get to the table and win. I think that what happens is Europeans, generally speaking, are supported by their country. A lot of them are nationally recognized, have grants, have a financial wherewithal to be arm wrestlers, or national heroes is really what they are. They're national icons of their sports, and they're supported. And I think that that's why you see that these matches are not always as equal. Many of them are lopsided because of the disconnect between time to train or seriousness of training on the North American side versus where it's at the European side. And I think, folks, you can almost take that and create some proof behind that when you look at a guy like Devin Lorette. Devin Lorette, when he was in service with Canada, was not a full-time arm wrestler. And certainly he did not possess full-time arm wrestling success. After retiring and now basically an arm wrestler full-time, supporting himself through sponsorship or social media or projects, he has been able to devote full-time his body to arm wrestling. And I think the world of arm wrestling can acknowledge his success. So when you look at matches like Sarah versus Eagle, folks, it might be not because Sarah isn't, a better arm wrestler in latent value. It may be that she just doesn't have the amount of time to be able to train to be as aggressively successful on the upper ends as some of these other arm wrestlers are. And hats off to Eagle. She is an amazing arm wrestler. I watched some of the match. In control, understands where she needs to go, what lane she wants to be in, and was very, very dominant. So kudos to Sarah. She's a terrific asset to the world of arm wrestling, sweetheart on all levels. But what do the women of North America need to do, in your opinion, folks, to become more competitive against the world stage? To become more competitive against the Gabriela Vascalones? Eagle Vercuti, how do they need to, what do we need to do, North Americans specifically, to get to that next level? Love to hear your comments and likes and questions in the comments below. Take a moment, folks, and put them in if you can. Keeping going with the recap, Todd Hutchings, he's just a phenom. And again, a lot of these names are tough for me, folks. I'm sorry if I butcher them, but Kidragali Angerbev was his opponent, and Todd shows again that the strength that this man possesses, and I don't even know if it's just strength, he's extremely smart, mechanical engineer. He understands the dynamic, the physiological breakdown of the body, the physics behind the motion and the movement. He has tooled his body. And Todd is not by any means a genetically freaky, gifted man. I've met Todd many a times. He is an average-sized man in height. He's an average-sized man in weight. He's certainly bigger now that he's put more time into arm wrestling. There's no doubt about it. He's gained weight over the years from the first time that I met him. But to look at Todd, the difference in maybe him as an arm wrestler, certainly the one lane, the side pressure lane that he possesses is phenomenal. He has a phenomenal amount of side pressure strength that is maybe second to none. He has an incredible amount of endurance. He can catch you off the hit. He definitely has some physical values that sets him apart. But his success, folks, is I think unparalleled right now when it comes to arm wrestling. To be able to train and to get ready in an area that doesn't possess a lot of the highest echelon of talent in arm wrestling, but to be able to get himself ready, physically able to be competitive, and not only be physically able to, but to go out and win. I think we have to acknowledge really the superiority of a man by the name of Todd Hutchings and what he's accomplished as an arm wrestler in the sport. It's phenomenal, folks. But tell me, where do you think Todd Hutchings ranks right now on the World Elite stage? Obviously, as a light heavyweight super match, that match itself has cemented his position in East versus West. But where is the limitations of Todd? Tell us what you think. Does he have any weaknesses? Do you see anybody being able to step up on an international end and dethrone him? Certainly, there's not too many people out here in North America who can. Maybe the last person to beat him being Jordan Sill probably 2 years ago. I want to say those two matched off. But 2 years forward today, I don't believe Jordan Sill would have the same end success as he did 2 years ago. Todd Hutchings is a beast. He's proven now that he is timeless, and he's proven that he's adaptable. He's able to identify his opponent, find that lane that makes a lot of sense, exploit those weaknesses, and obviously his success yesterday has shown that. In our last story and our wrap-up for East versus West, and I try to highlight, folks, really what I'll call fan favorites, people that have a fan base, some charisma in the sport, are well-liked, are sometimes not liked, but certainly people are aware. Let's talk about Matt Mask. Matt Mask took on a really a very well seasoned Frank Lamparelli. I think, folks, most people felt that this was a tune-up match for Matt. Unfortunately, maybe Matt felt that way as well, but Matt did not do very well to Frank. Frank took that super match. He really put a different value of arm wrestling in front of Matt. I think Matt, being the energetic, kind of the wild horse, as his nickname would suggest, arm wrestler, maybe overlooked Frank. Maybe didn't do enough homework. The one thing about Matt Mask, and you very, 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 very rarely hear anything that you would consider derogatory about these arm wrestlers, because they're amazing, amazing people. I think the one criticism I have as a fan of Matt, and it's not because I can beat Matt Mask. It's not because I believe that there's a value that I could train to beat Matt Mask. I think that as a fan, as a student of the sport, as someone who enjoys the sport, I find Matt to be very singular lane on the table. And I wonder sometimes, because he does have his ultimate rival from 10 years ago and maybe even 5-6 years ago, Devin Lorette, who has eclipsed where he was. Devin has made the change to be really the most dominant arm wrestler, short of one in Levon in the world right now. But Matt Mask and Devin had some very heated battles at WAL, has had some heated battles over the years in super matches. But folks, Matt has not evolved, in my opinion. And I would love to see Matt take a different value of how he's performing and maybe look to change. I mean, he's a low hand top roller is what he's called himself over the years. Certainly uses a lot of side pressure. He's got a long arm. He's got a freakishly developed arm. His arm and hand are super strong. But it's singular lane. I would love to see Matt come inside. I would love to see him spend maybe a couple of weeks in LA with Avajan Segoyan, somebody who is a very, very accomplished inside puller. Give a new lane to some of Matt's physical attributes. Genetically, the man is incredibly gifted. He's tall, he's lanky, he's strong, his wrist is incredibly strong. He's an oil rigger up in Canada. He certainly possesses an immense amount of natural, connective tissue strength. But I would love to see Matt really take his arm wrestling career and develop some table strategy, if you will. Look to mix it up. I think a lot of guys sit on Matt because of that one lane value. I'd love to see him mix it up. I'd love to see him come creative to the next super match he does. I love watching Matt Mask pull. I've met him several times. He's an incredible guy. He'll take not only one picture, he'll take 5 pictures with you. He'll spend the moment to work with you on the table, just talk with you, to be just human, being approachable. But I'd love to see somebody with a little bit bigger arm wrestling acumen sit down Matt, go over some new lanes for him to pull, and certainly turn his weaknesses into some strengths. I think if Matt does this, he will become one of the world elite again. But I think if he continues to pull singular the way he has, it's going to be tough. Guys are doing homework. The days of the internet are there. They study Matt Mask. I'm sure Frank took a lot of time to put together a game plan and executed it, which kudos to Frank. As an Italian arm wrestler of many, many years, many decades, certainly a prolific arm wrestler, not very well known outside of maybe some of the historians of arm wrestling, but Frank is absolutely one of the best to have done it. And it's shown after this weekend that he should be considered for a world stage value. kudos to you, Frank. And that wraps us up, folks, for our East versus West recaps and review. As always, be safe out there, pull strong, certainly stay in your lane or learn a few new lanes if that's the topic of today's video. But we appreciate you tuning in to Inside Arm Wrestling. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notification button on the YouTube channel. Have a great week out there, folks. We'll catch up with you next week with more Inside Arm Wrestling. Folks, if you like these stories and you want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe to our page. Also hit the notification bell underneath the video so that way you're notified every time a new video comes out. And if you're on social media, specifically Instagram, go to the World Series of Arm Wrestling Instagram page. Please follow it. We'll try to follow you back, but it'll keep you up to date with all of the news and events in the world of arm wrestling.